What's up? I'm back for another Mortal Kombat 1 rant. This time around, I'm going to be talking about Johnny Cage. I have a pretty good idea on how I think his story should go, but like the other videos, this is just kind of how I want to fit it into the current timeline. If I really wanted to go crazy and change things around, I probably would end up changing it a lot more, but I don't want to go against the story that NetherRealm Studios is trying to make so much. That's not the point of these rants. It's more so just to think, how can I flesh out the characters more with what they have provided to me? Because this isn't perfect. This is just something I've been thinking about for a bit and really takes Johnny in the direction I want his character to go and kind of fleshes out the details of what they were trying to go for with his character. But the way I go about it is just something that I don't think most people would have thought of originally, but I'll explain why it makes sense. Just want to start off by saying that the earlier chapters I more or less would kind of leave alone. I think how Johnny is presented with the rest of the Earthrealm gang is more than enough. It really starts developing their characters, how their personalities mesh, and I really like the direction of having Kenshi and Johnny be kind of bros. I think that's fun. I think that could be a great way to intertwine the characters and merge their storylines in the future. Their connection is definitely something I want to touch on more because I think this dynamic could work really well, similar to how they're trying to set up Kung Lao and Raiden in this timeline, or maybe how they had Sub-Zero and Scorpion in Mortal Kombat 11. Where I really want to start changing Johnny's character, though, is his kind of background bio, where I want him to have grown up with a father who was an explorer of sorts. You can think of a Lara Croft character, or maybe Nathan Drake from Uncharted, and just some guy that just travels around, goes on adventures, finds stuff. He's just a cool person. And Johnny, unfortunately, therefore, is left to kind of grow up without his dad as much. Since he's not around and he doesn't really have a ton to do, he kind of resorts to watching kung fu movies as one of his main pastimes, and that's just kind of where I feel like he would develop his love for martial arts and acting, and from then on, obviously go on to be both a successful martial artist and a successful actor. I want to set it up this way is because I envision at some point that Johnny's father, who does care about him, gives Johnny a ring as a gift, and it has something inscribed in it similar to, let's say, glory to the worthy. Nothing too fancy, but just some inscription that to Johnny at the moment really is kind of meaningless, but he still wears it. I want it to be something Johnny got when he's a kid, and he wears it every day throughout his adult life, more or less. I don't want Johnny to have a bad relationship with his father or anything like that necessarily. That could be something to explore, but I just want it to more so be he looks up to his father and he loves his dad, and it's just unfortunate he wasn't around as much, and that's why he wears the ring, and also perhaps takes on certain roles he does in movies because similar to how they originally introduced him with the like fake fights, he's on a movie set for his chapter. You could argue and kind of portray Johnny as trying to like live up to his dad, be what his dad was. And even though he himself is not an explorer, it's still just something that Johnny finds cool and tries to portray and emulate his father in that way, whether it's on purpose or subconsciously. I think something that you can do is just have it where when Johnny first joins Liu Kang and accepts the mission to, okay, I'll train with you, I'll see what's going on, where maybe him and Kenshi are practicing and Kenshi notices the ring. And then Kenshi can just say something where like, hey, when I first attacked you at the mansion, I saw you were wearing this ring and I see you're wearing it now. Like, what's the deal with it? Why is it so important to you? And that could just give a way for Johnny to, in like a casual and organic conversation, building up the relationship even more, give Johnny a way to just kind of expound on all of this. There's also a couple key things I would change that may not seem like big details or you may think is dumb, but again, I'll explain why it makes sense in my head later. And one thing is when Chris, Johnny's ex-wife in the game, is talking to him early on about why did you buy Sento? It costs so much. I want him to say something like, because you know how much it means to me, but without really going into detail as to why. And then maybe at points of why when he's talking to Kenshi about the ring, he can explain that his father actually discovered Sento, and his father's the one that like got him interested in the background and history of it. But when his father did find it, he donated it to a museum or something. It's not in Johnny's hands, at least, and that's why he spent so much money trying to bring it back, because it's something that connects him to his dad. Another controversial thing that people might not like is I don't want Johnny and his wife to just be divorced right off the bat. I know when Luke Kang comes talk to him, they have this big blowout, him and Chris. That's the wife's name, and that is just kind of implied that they're divorced because I think in the story and in Johnny's intro lines, he just references, "Hey, like Chris and I aren't together." I would still have that happen, I think, just later on in the story. So I would still kind of have her and Johnny trying to make things work while he's training, and Johnny just understands the relationship's rocky and he doesn't know how to fix it right now. That's more or less the extent of what I'd want to change in the first half, and the second part would be picking up after that the Earthrealm gang returns from Outworld. So Kenshi is blind at this point, and he needs to basically rest and recover. And I figured since Johnny and Kenshi have been getting pretty close during their Outworld adventures, that Johnny could offer, given he has a mansion, like, "Hey Kenshi, you can stay and rest with me for now," and Kenshi takes him up on it. And so they're back at Johnny's mansion. They talk. Johnny shows them Kenshi's room, just like where he can stay, the general layout, and they go. Like Kenshi just goes to rest. And at some point soon after, Chris comes back, who is Johnny's current wife, or maybe at least in the process of divorcing wife. And they talk a bit. Maybe she comes because she's picking up stuff that day, just like to take back to her new place, or she still lives there because they're still in the process of splitting up. Either way works. And while they're there, this is where want things to get a little intense. At this point in the story, I want to introduce some of the Black Dragon members. I don't exactly know who I'd want, but I was kind of thinking of Cabal and Kano and maybe just some general grunts. They come and attack the mansion. And there's two reasons that I think you could explain why they're attacking. The first one is they're after Kenshi because the Yakuza contracted the Black Dragon to basically go out and find Kenshi and or just kill him. And so since Kenshi is staying with Johnny, that's just where they're going to attack, and Johnny's now caught up in this. The second part you could actually go for is that they're going after the ring that Johnny has that his dad gave to him a long time ago, and or Sento, and that they're attacking specifically Johnny, and Kenshi just happens to be there and is caught up in the fight. I don't have a super strong feeling for one or the other either way, because the main reason I want to introduce it like this is because I think it would be interesting to have Johnny and Kenshi be the main forces that are opposing the Black Dragon, as opposed to the military special forces unit like Sonya and Jax, especially since in Mortal Kombat 1, you kind of got that closure of Sonya getting the one up on Kano where she shot him in the face. So I just kind of think that's something that doesn't need to be retread personally, and this would be one of the differences. So whoever is fighting Kenshi, which I think would be Cabal at this point, is just a cutscene fight only. I don't want to introduce a ton of new characters or have to replace a bunch of new characters replace a bunch of existing characters right now, because I don't think it's really fair to NetherRealm Studios to fix a lot of their issues by just adding more when there's gonna obviously be developmental constraints. And so Cabal is there just as a cutscene though, and you don't actually have to fight him in game, so no one's upset about him being in game but not playable like Ermac or Quan Chi. Kano though, on the other hand, who would be fighting Johnny, I would personally want him to be a playable character, and I think I would replace either Rain, because Rain probably just doesn't need to be in Mortal Kombat 1 DLC or anything, because I don't really think they could do his story justice right now, or even really give you good crumbs of what he could be as a character. I would also replace Tanya as a potential person, because I personally think that she would be great as DLC, because I have different ideas of what I'd want the DLC to be. So those would be one of the two people I'd replace with Kano. During the fight with Kano and Johnny, I want Kano to just be bloodthirsty and ruthless. And you can either have him just beat the shit out of Johnny just because he's stronger than him at the moment. Keep in mind, Johnny doesn't really have a lot going on. He's just a great martial artist. But at the same time, when Liu Kang was picking his champion for Earthrealm, Johnny was, I'm pretty sure, in last place. Like, it was him, then Kenshi, Kung Lao, and then Raiden. So he hasn't been getting a lot of props throughout the story, and I think this is a great opportunity to really start flourishing Johnny as someone that can be a hero, as it's kind of alluded to at the beginning of the story. So Kano is beating the shit out of Johnny, either one-on-one or Johnny's worn down from beating grunts of the Black Dragon. But the most important thing I want to focus on is Johnny is protecting Chris, his ex-wife. And no matter what, despite him knowing they're getting a divorce, and despite them probably having constant fights, Johnny is he's not backing down or letting Kano hurt her. And so he's just getting messed up and really just taking the bullet for her. So Johnny's just getting really messed up and just taking all these punches and blows by Kano, and you could even make it near fatal. Johnny's in serious trouble, and he's in the palm of Kano's hands, basically. And then that's where I want his powers to start coming out, and I want it to be from the ring. Do I think the ring is quite as cool as him just inherently having the powers? Maybe not, but I don't want to retread that whole storyline personally. And I think the ring is just a great way to give Johnny some of his powers without really going back on what was already told before. And so with the ring, Johnny is finally living up to the inscription of like glory to the victor or a glory to the worthy, something like that. And he just starts to get some powers from it, and he's able to defend Chris and beat the shit out of Kano. This is where I think that Kano would sustain the injuries, where he needs to go undergo cybernetics in order to survive, or quite frankly, maybe he just thinks he's too weak now, and that these cybernetic boosts are what he needs to get an edge on people. Either or, I think this would be a cool way to start the origin of him and Kabal. So Kano getting hurt from Johnny, and then Kabal getting hurt by Kenshi. I just think this could be a cool way to introduce the Black Dragons in a small piece of the game without really making them a focus of it, while also giving Johnny and Kenshi a unique way to interact with them moving forward in the future. Johnny at this point has his powers. Kabal, Kano, and the Black Dragons have been defeated and fended off, and they're running for the hills. And Johnny and Chris have a moment to talk. Johnny just put his life on the line for Chris, and she's not ignoring it like it's something that's a big deal, and Johnny almost died. And they just have a really good heart-to-heart and touching moment where they basically come to terms that Johnny's changing and trying to find himself and growing as a person, and that just because things didn't work out between them, that doesn't mean that they still don't care about each other or that they're bad people, and that sometimes things just don't work out. And that's okay. I think this works for multiple reasons and on multiple levels because it really gives Chris something to do to drive Johnny's character forward and gives her a bit more screen time to make her just purpose in the game actually means something, because for now she shows up, she argues with Johnny, and she has valid points. Johnny's kind of losing his way and just getting focused on trying to revamp his acting career, which isn't really working out, and she just wants him to be more of the Johnny that she knew, which I think is just a very fair point that Johnny just doesn't really address right away, which is just really dumb because I don't really see why she would be in the game in the first place then. No one has any reason to like her, and I don't think you necessarily do based off of what I want to propose, but it's just still something to actually make her have a use in the game and not necessarily overextend her welcome. Like, this could be the last game she's in, maybe she's referenced later on, but still, she's someone that came and went before she really overstayed, and it really leaves the love interest open still for Johnny and Sonya to potentially be a thing down the line. This works for Johnny because it addresses a lot of the issues I thought he had, where in the games previously and at the beginning of this game it said, well, why was Johnny here? He's just a knucklehead. And Liu Kang or Raiden will be like, well, he's a hero, he/you just don't know it yet. And I think in the story Johnny was doing heroic things, like when he was going to try to help with the mission for Earthrealm, and he went and he basically saved Kenshi and gave him Sento, and he's just being a cool guy, but that's not necessarily heroic enough for me, at least, to justify the illusion of, hey, he's gonna be a hero. The game just doesn't really show me why or how yet. So with this fight and him putting his life on the line for Chris and really just like he's about to die. I want to make that clear. He will die if Kano keeps this going, but he will not let him hurt her. I think this is just a great way to show, no, Johnny is a hero, and this is just a great way to really start his kind of heroic trajectory moving forward. I don't think he has to be the main character of the story like an MKX. I don't want his powers to really be as strong as they were in MKX either, but I think it's still kind of lame for Johnny fans to not have the iconic green powers with him. And so while this storyline is a bit different as to why he has them or how they work, and they're obviously not going to be as strong, I still think it's a cool ode to the original Johnny and gives him something to keep up with people. At the same time, I think the storyline also gives an interesting way for Johnny to really kind of move forward in the future, where now he has the mystery of, well, what the hell did his dad get up to? Like, I need to know more about my dad, because obviously he was up to some things and finding artifacts that are very important to some people. Like, it gave me this weird power. What is this ring even? Like, what's going on with that? And also just to move forward with going after the Black Dragon or defending against them with Kenshi. Personally, I think it would be cool if the ring came from someone that was previously in the Mortal Kombat tournaments and that's how they got their powers. Or something you could do is they put their powers in the ring for some reason. Why that's exactly the case, I don't know. It could be someone we already are familiar with in the previous games, or it could be a way to introduce a brand new character. Either way, I think that's still an interesting thing to do. So TLDR of what this achieved for Johnny is gives him a way to introduce some of his powers coming back from the previous games, cuts things with Chris in a more organic way, and just shows further development of his character and really emphasizes the fact of Johnny is a hero, even if he's not a hero like of the whole story and just saving the world. As a side note, I think a way that you could change his tower ending too is currently what it is he's like, hey, Liu Kang wanted to mean is like, what if we did it where you introduced the world to all these different realms, all this magic and stuff, and that's just a way to slowly introduce to people that there are other forces that exist besides Earthrealm, and you need to be aware of it. I think that's something that could definitely be done, and I don't think it's necessarily a dumb idea alone, but I think making that the only focus of his latter ending was kind of wasted potential because at least going off of the idea that I have, part of it would be he's working on the script for like his Mortal Kombat movies on how to start planting the seeds of hey, these things actually exist or something like that. He's contemplating how he's gonna reveal it to the world, if not the movies. And while he's doing that, though, he's traveling around. He's trying to look for answers of maybe who his dad is, going to locations he's visited in the past, trying to look up more of the artifacts he found, like Sento or the Ring, and just kind of shows that hey, he's on the hunt. He's interested in exploring. He's trying to figure it out, and I guess we'll see where it goes in the DLC slash next game. These are things I think were done before, just not really shown in the way that I really thought they deserve to be shown, especially for a character as important as Johnny. I understand, though, that it's probably delicate to Johnny fans on how they want his character portrayed. Again, I'm not saying my answer is perfect right now, but for what the story is and how I could kind of organically fit it in, I just thought this was a good solution. So, again, if you disagree, just let me know. These were my thoughts on how to really give him some more flowers than what he got in the original game, and just appreciate anyone watching. So I'll catch you later.